Welcome to the Hyper Voice. I am your host, Stephen Morioka. I am joined by the wonderful Alex Underhill.
Hello there.
And boy, do we have some news for this week's episode, huh?
Yeah, this is really exciting.
So what we are talking about is pretty much the 2017 format was announced a lot earlier than we expected. So that came out. There was a bunch of information on that. What was also released was that the Global Link is going to launch with the games Sun and Moon when they come out in November. To go along with the format, there was a new Your Time system to the clock being introduced. We're also going to have a new feature called Rental Teams using a QR code. And lastly, we've known this for a while now, but there's going to be friendly online and live competitions going on, being added into as features for Global Link to play with. So, lots to discuss. Alex, do you think it makes sense we just start with going over the format and what was released about that?
Yeah, I think that's probably the big highlight news for us VGC players is what kind of format we expect to be playing in, and it's really cool that it was announced so much earlier. This is not something that's very typical. We don't see these kind of announcements until like just about before we're about to be playing in it. So it's kind of nice that like we have at least a bit of mental preparation when like Sun and Moon comes out. We'll know what kind of format we're going to be playing in these earlier events in December once the format changes.
Couldn't agree more. It's very nice to have an early announcement on this kind of thing. And to go over some of the major highlights of the format that we're going to have starting in December. As we talked about in several episodes before, we are going to have an Alola Regional Pokedex. And basically other highlights from that are the Z Crystals, the very much debated and mysterious Z Crystals are going to be allowed. And surprisingly, to me at least, Megastones are not allowed. And lastly, there's the 10-minute player timer system being introduced for the new season, really. And that's going to change things. We'll go into that a little bit later. But what do you think about those three major things for the format to start with?
Well, I guess we could talk about the regional Pokedex first, which was probably the least surprising, but still nice to have that bit of confirmation. It's what we expected. We've been talking about it in previous episodes, how we thought that it was time for another regional Pokedex, and that's exactly what we got. And it's really, I think I like that. I enjoyed, I don't know if everybody did, but I enjoyed 2014 when I started. That was a format that I felt like I could use like all these different kinds of Pokemon, and it's kind of nice to take a break from certain common Pokemon that are always seen in VGC, like the Genies or certain other very strong legends like Heatran and Cresselia. We don't know if they'll be in the game or not. They very well could come back, but it's nice to maybe give the new Pokemon introduced in Alola a bit of a spotlight, at least the ones that are competitively viable.
Yes, it certainly gives them a chance to at least try to be viable in the competitive format. And what is also nice about having the Alola Regional Pokedex is it for the rule set kind of makes it easier for newer players to get into it. They don't have to worry about having any older Pokemon being sent in from previous generations or not having access to certain things. And another thing to go with that is you mentioned how we don't know if some of those legendary Pokemon will be in the game. They also told us in some of the information they provided is that some legendary Pokemon are going to be banned, but not all of them, and some haven't even been released yet.
I saw that. That was there was an interesting tidbit there that said some legends will be banned, but not all. So the ones that we do know are not going to be allowed already in the new format are the cover legends Solgaleo and Lunala, as well as the mythical legend Magearna. So yeah, we know that they will be banned for sure, but it says, that some legends will be allowed. So when I was looking at that, I was basically thinking of Pokemon like Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno, and Pokemon like them that have been allowed in previous formats, and there will probably be legendary equivalents to those in the Alola Regional Pokedex. But we could also expect to see Pokemon like Zapdos, Moltres, Articuno, like actually those Pokemon, if they're allowed in the Alola Regional Dex, and then they could be allowed in VGC 2017. We don't know for sure, because in X and Y, we did see the legendary birds come back, and they were legal in VGC 2014 that year. So we just kind of have to wait to see what legendaries are obtainable in this game, because they always make a big impact on the format.
Yes, still a lot of unknowns about that. Especially, if the Ultra Beasts are, first off, are they even Pokemon? Second off, are they going to be restricted category, mythical category? Are they just legendary category? We don't know. Same with Tapu Koko. Is that the guy's name?
Yep, Tapu Koko. So excited
the
for
Island
Tapu
Guardian.
Koko. Tapu Koko is going to be a beast.
Yeah. Well, not an Ultra Beast, I don't think. But we'll see if
okay.
We'll see if it's qualified as or classified as a legendary Pokemon.
Another thing that was somewhere on the site that we didn't mention already is there will be a new kind of Pentagon equivalent for legal Pokemon, essentially. It says that you are allowed to use Pokemon in the Alolan Regional Pokedex, but if these are Pokemon that you can find in Alola, they have to be caught in your Sun and Moon game, essentially. They can't be transferred over. So, one example we saw was, I always go back to this one, but we saw a Ledyba in one of the trailers. And so if you wanted to use a Ledyba in VGC, you would have to catch one in Sun and Moon instead of transferring it maybe from X and Y or Omega Ruby or Alpha Sapphire. It won't be legal that way. So it's kind of nice that we're keeping this Pentagon rule. It means that certain old events don't become something you have to soft reset for and then transfer all the way up to the new games. It's nice that it keeps things fresh, and it makes it a lot easier for newer players to play the game.
Yeah, certainly increases accessibility there. In terms of, it balances out it levels off the playing field for everyone once the new game comes out, because everyone has to get all their stuff from Sun and Moon. And I also like how considerate you were that some people might actually want to use Ledyba. But it was a good example.
Yeah, poor Ledyba. Even its evolution Ledian isn't going to make much of an impact. But who knows? We might get an Alolan form. It might just get a huge stat buff, because that's something that we, though this isn't really related to the format, but it's something that we could see coming is when we flipped over to X and Y, some Pokemon did get stat buffs. I remember one of the biggest ones is Raichu. Raichu got a boost in speed by +10. And so we could see more changes like that with Sun and Moon coming, making other Pokemon more viable than they had been in the past.
Right. That is reasonable to expect that there may be changes. The beauty of that is we won't have any of that information until we actually get the games, and, people can rip the data from them to see what those changes actually are. So that was a really cool thing to see back in when X and Y came out, where some of those stat buffs, or stat changes really. We can just say, everyone's always excited at the beginning of a new format. This one especially because we're having a new generation. So hopefully we'll bring in newer players, and, everyone's always excited at the start, and people's excitement, enjoyment possibly taper off as every season goes on. So same type of cycle we always see. We'll probably experience the same ups and downs we do every time. I'm expecting at least. But with all the new changes allowed, we'll see maybe the excitement level stays high as we'd like to see it. So the next thing we talked about were Z crystals. So still a lot of mystery with the moves, how they operate, the power, accuracies, all that stuff. But not pretty surprising that the Z crystals are going to be included in the game, as they are the new feature for this generation.
Yeah, they've got some pretty fancy animations to go with them. They couldn't just disclude them. They're going to be hugely popular in the beginning. Everyone's going to want to see all these Z animations from the Z moves. And we still don't know how powerful they are, so they might not end up being... we don't know if they'll be more or less powerful than Mega Evolution. It's something that you can expect pretty much every team to have, is some kind of Z move and a Z crystal to go along with it on the team. but we'll see how common they are, if they're actually worth using, or if they're broken or not, I guess.
Yeah, if you think about each generation's changes as we've gone through VGC, the 5th generation really focused on gems. 6th gen was about megas, and going into 7th gen, it seems like the new focus may perhaps be on Z crystals, and just adding on, since megastones won't be allowed, we'll talk about that very shortly. Those will primarily be a focal point for this season. And, I imagined these moves have to be extremely powerful, so they're going to be, hyper beam power equivalents, or at least stronger. It's got to be stronger, I'd think, especially if it's one-time use.
Yeah, it's got to be stronger than those at the very least, I would say. And, they don't seem to have any drawbacks, and they're a 5th move, but they do take, up the item slot, which is an interesting concept because, if you're trying to use a Pokemon with this powerful move, then suddenly they're missing out a lot of the benefits of items. Items are a huge part of video game championships, and certain items make Pokemon a lot more viable than they could have been. So Z moves definitely have to be worth it to take up an item slot, and then you have to commit to one Pokemon on your team. So let's see which Pokemon end up being, maybe brought up in usage just because of their Z move. Like one we saw in the trailer was Snorlax. We don't see Snorlax too often in VGC, but maybe its Z move is just so incredibly powerful and worth it that Snorlax rises into popularity.
Yeah, Snorlax was good in the early years, but as time's gone on, it's gotten relatively worse. But I forget what I was going to say to add on to what you were saying.
That's a good point, though. Snorlax was a lot more popular back in the day because of its self-destruct kind of nuking the entire field. Maybe with its new Z move, it'll kind of relive those glory days.
You're right. It was all about its self-destruct and also its ability to belly drum and abuse that power, which was a lot better back then than it is the way Snorlax is used today.
I'm really hoping that Z moves kind of revive some Pokemon that aren't seen as often, or just, they're going to be cool because there's going to be some certain Pokemon-specific Z moves like we've seen in some of the other trailers, and so that's going to be really awesome. And we've seen some Z moves that don't even do damage. So, there was the Eevee one that boosts all of its stats, all of its, I think, offensive and defensive stats. I don't think did it boost speed? I don't remember.
Yeah, it does.
It boosts speed. Oh my. But yeah, so that'll be really interesting to see how Z moves just kind of shape the meta. I think they're definitely going to be a part of it. How powerful they are is yet to be seen, though.
Yes, and another thing I want to mention, and this is what I forgot earlier, now I remember it, is that a lot of people have been making comparisons of the Z crystals and Z moves to gems, and I don't necessarily like that much because we know Z moves are a one-time use on your entire team per battle, whereas gems back in 5th gen, you could have all 4 of your Pokemon hold a different gem type, and all 4 of them would still be able to use it. So, while there was major there were major buffs back in 5th gen each time you used that respective move that activates your gem, the Z crystals now aren't going to give you, obviously, these are obviously going to be very powerful moves, but considering they're just one-time use, they're going to behave and influence the way the game is played a lot differently than we saw gems. So, just wanted to point that out. Maybe some other people think they are comparable. I don't think so that much.
Yeah, that's a good point. While crystals and gems might seem similar, with a one-time, limiting it to one Pokemon per team and the power level yet to be determined, I'd say that comparing them to gems just isn't a fair comparison yet.
Yeah, the power level, I imagine, is going to be over 9,000 at least. So, we'll stay tuned for that. We're all anxiously awaiting. Probably won't get that information till the game, comes out and we find out how strong these moves actually are.
Yeah, so in my opinion, I just don't think Z moves are going to be as influential as the Megas were in these past couple years. And So since we're mentioning megas, I think it might be a good time to talk about the fact that going forward, while megas will be in Sun and Moon, they will not be allowed in VGC.
Hallelujah!
I was actually really excited as soon as I read that. As soon I didn't even finish the article. I just immediately was like, I need to talk to someone about this. This is so exciting and game breaking because no one thought they would go away. Everyone thought that we would be kind of stuck with megas because of how big they were in marketing, and they put so much work into the design of these mega evolutions and stuff like that. But it's crazy that they're gone, and it also makes me wonder how my next year of VGC will go, considering every format I've played has allowed mega evolution. So it's going to be very different for myself. You've been there before, back before 2014, when mega evolution had not even been invented yet. So I'm sure you'll have a bit more of experience playing without him, but for me, it's going to be a whole new ballgame.
I'm very excited, and that's a very good point you bring up about some of the newer players who have only experienced VGC through Mega Evolution, is that when that type of function doesn't exist in a competitive format like this, it makes you think a lot more critically about your item choices. Because your Mega Stones had to be on your respective Mega Pokemon, so you know, oh, this is my Mega Pokemon, this is a building point for my team where I start or, fit in at some point. But now you have to think a lot more, more about your item choices. And especially, there may even be new items. Obviously, there probably will be for the new games. But it's nice they're gone. The power creep was, sometimes a bit too much, especially, our favorite queen, Kangaskhan. She's really a centerpiece of a lot of VGC teams we've seen the past 3 years. And, it'll be nice to see. Kangaskhan will probably still be, we already kind of have it confirmed that it's in the Pokedex. Whether it's going to be used without its Megastone, is yet to be seen. It probably won't be, I imagine.
Yeah, I don't think that even if Kangaskhan does have some utility on its own, I just don't think it's going to be as popular it has been. So it's not going to take center spotlight like it has been taking in the past couple of years. So Kangaskhan definitely going to have to step down, let some other Pokemon live in the glory. And it's going to be a good change, I think, honestly. While we did see a different Mega Evolution win the World Championships every year over the course of the past 3 years, there was always Megas that were dominating, like Mega Salamence, Mega Kangaskhan, Mega Mawile, Mega Gengar. Those ones were always at the top. They were always very dominant and strong. And since Megas won't be allowed anymore, I think it's kind of sad that Mega Salamence, my favorite Mega, never actually won a World Championship. So this is, I'm dedicating this to Mega Salamence. I'm sorry, Mega Salamence, that no one could take you all the way to the top.
It's our poor show mascot. Couldn't get the big win over the 3 years. Oh, I actually should also point out that for the 2017 format, the Mega Stones are not allowed. And this, I imagine, is to allow the Alola Pokemon, or the Alola regional Pokemon to, get their time in the sun, get opportunities to play, showcase the new Z moves and those crystals and stuff. And it is possible they may return for future seasons. They do exist in the game. We'll see if they come back or not. So they're not gone forever. Keep your fingers crossed. It is possible they could return starting 2018. Who knows?
Yep. Megas are definitely still in the game. It could just be that this format wanted to highlight the Sun and Moon Pokemon, which I don't think is wrong. I really am excited to see a lot of these Pokemon operating in VGC. A lot of them seem to have stuff that could be catered to doubles, like we saw that one move Instruct from one of the new Pokemon, I think Oranguru, which is definitely meant for doubles. And we saw another ability, which was called Receiver. That one's definitely meant only for doubles. So it seems like a lot of these Pokemon have uses that we'll be able to see in doubles, and it's going to be great that they'll have the chance to thrive without Mega Evolution.
Have we had any other teacher Pokemon other than Clefairy from Pokemon Stadium?
I don't know if exactly we have. Maybe Audino, but I don't know. It just depends. I haven't kept up with like the show or all the side games and stuff like that, so I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, I was just curious because I couldn't really think of any other Pokemon, but that's yeah. Except still a lot of mystery surrounding the new Pokemon and everything Sun and Moon, which is why we haven't talked about most of these things too much because there's all we'd say is that we don't know a lot about it.
Yep. But what we do know is a lot of the new format announcements, and I guess the last thing to talk about in terms of the the 2017 format is this new Your Time system, which a lot of people, there's been a lot of talk about it already. People are like, some are worried about it, some love it, but I don't think there's enough information to make a full judgment on it yet because there's a couple of key points still missing. But the way that it's going to work is we have this new 10 minutes per player kind of time system, like a chess clock. And so what that means is if I was playing against Steven in a match, and I made my move in 30 seconds and Steven made his move in 15 seconds, his chess timer essentially would be sitting at 9 minutes and 45 seconds left, while mine would be sitting at 9 minutes and 30 seconds left. Now, let's say Steven and I had a very long game. We played this way all the way down. I would run out of time before Steven did, and because of that, I would lose the match. So it's a twist on the timer from previous years where timer stalling used to be a thing, and you could play slowly to win on time. But now that doesn't seem to be the case any longer. You'll have to play a little bit quicker, at least, just so you don't time yourself out and end up causing yourself to lose on time. What do you think of this, Steven?
You're right in how there are mixed opinions about this new timing system, and I think one of the biggest unknowns really with people's concerns is, back in all these past few generations we've had a battle time and a command time. Our command time before used to be 45 seconds. Battle time, say last season was 15 minutes per battle. We don't know if the battle time is going to be returning in addition to the new Your Time. See, if the battle time is there, then the Your Time makes sense. That you don't want to necessarily timer stall like in the traditional sense where you use all of your clock on your side because you might run out of your own time to play, and the battle time may keep running longer than whatever. But the command time has been increased to 60 seconds, so people get a little bit longer to think if they need it. And I can't really say much about Your Time until we know for sure whether we have a match timer.
Yeah, it's really interesting because without a match timer, I believe it said somewhere that the animations don't take up any of your time. So these incredibly long Z animations won't be, a method of timer stalling in a way. But what's interesting is if we don't have a battle timer, these matches could end up taking a huge variable amount of time depending on the speed at which the players pick their moves. Because if the 10-minute player time is the only 10-minute Your Time is the only way that the game will end besides Pokemon being knocked out. If everyone's making their moves in 10 seconds, we're going to have a very, very long game, and this could be a very big problem for live events.
Well, the game will be longer. Players and spectators will at least get to watch the animations, going on rather than watching the clock run down every turn for so long.
It also makes me wonder how it will be handled with these certain strategies like minimize and stuff like that. These like setup strategies that involve evasion that you typically look at, or like Shedinja, if you face Shedinja and you can't hit it super effectively. People look at those strategies and say like, oh, I'm not too worried about facing that. Like if I face that in a real tournament, I'll just timer stall it. Because those strategies typically involve going down in Pokemon early, down like in a score like maybe 1-4. And then if you just manage to keep your Pokemon around and play slowly, you'll manage to beat those teams on time. But that could not be the case anymore because of Your Time. If that person just managed to make their moves all really quickly, then they might actually end up winning because you run out of time before they do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't really have much to add there. Just, I agree with some of those issues we may have with those evasion boosting teams? What did you call them?
I just said minimize teams, stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you. Minimize. I forgot what the move was called. Minimize teams. Yeah, something like that could be an issue, depending on what's going to happen with all the timers we have. So it's still yet to be seen. I like this edition of Your Time. I may change my opinion later depending on how things work out and what other info we get. Another very positive addition, it's yet to be seen if the Your Time is a positive or neutral or negative addition to the VGC format, is that the long-awaited dedicated VGC ladder has finally been added to the Global Link. And the other special thing about that is Global Link is launching when Sun and Moon launch, so that's November 18th for most regions. And we have our own VGC ladder, and it's specifically being called Championship Battles, or the Championship format, something like that.
So I mentioned in previous episodes how I always wanted some kind of in-game way to promote VGC, and I think this is a small but very significant step in the right direction. Calling them championship battles is just it makes them sound prestigious and cool, which is a nice change. And then having a dedicated ladder on there all throughout the year is really cool because people who are looking to get into competitive battling will hop on BattleSpot or whatever the equivalent is for the Global Link in game, and they will they'll see this format called Championship Battles, and maybe they start playing it and they like it, and then they'll look up oh, how do I get good at Championship Battles? And then they'll end up just stumbling upon the VGC circuit, and hopefully that just helps the VGC scene grow.
I imagine it would. It's a great way to advertise, like you had mentioned in the past, and how you just beautifully described there. And another great thing about this is we finally don't have to worry about losing a format from the special season or something, because this has happened in 2 of the last 3 seasons, 2014 and 2016, where we had VGC rules for part of the season, then they disappear for some other garbage that we don't care about specifically. It hurt people's practice, for players who like to be playing on BattleSpot. It's very convenient to just turn your game on, put your team in your party or your battle box, and then just start playing. Showdown is its own thing, and generally playing in your game is a lot. The animations look a lot better. Sometimes it's slower, but that's how the real game is played, and it's just nice to have that. What's also nice about it is for anyone who's creating content, just playing on Twitch, streaming on Twitch, making YouTube videos. We've saw this the past few months here after VGC 2016, the special format was taken away from everyone to play on there, is you see all these people, they're kind of going all over the place in terms of their videos. And, it's just such a hassle when you can't create content like that. That's just so simple. Oh, I'll just go on BattleSpot, play a few battles. That'll be my video, or that's what we'll do for the stream. Now you got to go through the hassle of, maybe I'll play with getting other people's friend codes and we'll battle like that on our streams. Or that's the kind of video I'll have to make. It's just so much simpler now for everyone in general, whether you're making content, whether you're a brand new player starting to enter the scene, or someone who just likes to practice a lot. You'll always have this avenue for you.
Yeah, in-game has always been the best source of practice. I don't think there's too much debate on that, just because it gives you the closest feel to actually playing in a real tournament. And we'll have to see if the ladder simulates your time, because that'll be an interesting concept. But it's just really cool that we're going to have this ability to practice all year round. And instead of dropping the format just right before Worlds, just so people can play this fast singles format. Although I've heard some people make jokes that the fast singles was in preparation for VGC 2017, because we're going to have to click our moves all really quickly now so that we don't run out of our own Your Time. So That's a funny joke, but the reality is that it was very unfortunate that we couldn't play VGC in preparation for Worlds, and so it's nice that we'll have this format, this ladder to play on all year round.
I'm very excited. When those formats disappeared from the special ladders, that was bad VGC.
Yeah.
Do not want to see that again, and it doesn't look like we will, so very happy about this. Some of the things we talked about earlier is the 2017 format and the your time. There's potential there could be, some drawbacks and issues with each, depending on what happens and what we see coming in Sun and Moon. With the new championship battles format, there is literally nothing wrong with adding this into the game.
Yes, I agree completely. It's just a positive feature. Everyone's going to be able to practice. No one's going to be missing out on BattleSpot, like you said, for content creators, people recording stuff from BattleSpot. It's going to be great, and I'm really excited to see how it goes. And something else that's kind of related to BattleSpot going forward is something called rental teams. And I'm sure you saw that, Steven, the QR rental teams. Do you want to mention what exactly they are?
Yes, starting in, the new games, the website states you'll be able to register. You can register teams all the way up to, you can register an entire team onto, BattleSpot or, online, create a QR code for it. Other people can download that QR code or scan that QR code and use your team. You can also, pick individual Pokemon to put onto teams, which is nice. And players will be able to use rental teams, so other people's teams very easily and handily.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool how they mentioned that, that you can share teams really easily, and they also mentioned that you can. They have these 6 battle teams, which is a separate thing, but you can register up to 6 battle teams, which are basically like the battle box from previous years. Although now it's multiplied by 6. You can have up to 6 different teams, and the same Pokemon can be registered across these teams, which is an awesome new feature. I know, I had issues kind of, organizing my boxes to figure out, I use this same Pokemon on multiple teams, so how do I represent that for myself to kind of figure out, and if I want to use these different teams in different matches and, practice with all them, it makes it so much easier to just be able to put all these 6 different teams that I want to try out together and then hop on BattleSpot and just pick between the different ones I want to pick.
Exactly. Imagine next summer or something, we're coming, we're heading into Worlds prep. It's going to be at that time. And say you got a team of 5 Pokemon and you're still looking for that perfect 6th member for that last slot. And now you can have 5 of your same Pokemon on 5 different teams and then keep shuffling in those different slots on each of those teams and have easy access in, training like that. It's like Showdown in a way.
Yeah, that's a really cool concept. I didn't even think about that, is that you can just test, slight iterations of each team in all your different slots. And, yeah, that's going to be a really cool concept. I also wonder what would happen if you were to, edit a Pokemon. Since your Pokemon can be, used across multiple teams, what would happen if you edit it? But that's speculation. I mean, we don't know that yet, but it's just kind of an interesting thing to think about, is if you were to edit your Pokemon, how it would affect the battle boxes or the battle teams in this case.
So I think what you're referencing there is, if you change EVs or change the move on a certain registered Pokemon, correct?
Yes.
So the way I see this working is when you put your team up as a QR code, that will be its individual QR code. And if you change any of your Pokemon after that code's been uploaded, the QR code and whatever data was input with that team's info is going to remain that way. And whatever you do with your Pokemon after that isn't going to affect that at all.
That's a good point.
If you were to update that team again, you'd have to make another QR code.
Okay. Yes, I get what you mean now. That's good point. And yeah, it's really exciting, though, like you mentioned, the QR codes, that people are going to be able to just share teams this way instead of, maybe hey, can I try your team? And so then you'd have to borrow it, or you have to breed it yourself in game and get a hand on all the Pokemon. Instead, your friend, you could just say, hey, could you upload that QR code and then you scan it, and then you get to try out the team for yourself, which is just a really cool feature. It'll help people team build together. And this is another one of those just overall positive, awesome new features that Sun and Moon's bringing.
What's kind of peculiar about the website when they mention this is they specifically say you can take part in link battles and certain rating battles using a battle team you've rented. So it doesn't state anywhere about using it in actual competitions.
Yeah, that is true.
Like
we don't
live
know
competitions.
If, like live events like Premier Challenges or regionals, can Steven and I just go to the event with the same team, and then Steven gets it all together, and I'll be like, oh, Steven, I don't have a team. Can you just give me the QR code for yours? I'll just use it at this regional. And then I can just use a rental team at a Premier event. We're not sure if they'll be allowed or not, if it's just for practice, if it's just for playing on BattleSpot, but it's cool nonetheless.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be opposed to it if they did allow them at live competitions. I don't have a big deal about people using rental teams like that, because that's something we've kind of wanted for a while now, is for players to be able to just, get a team really quickly into a tournament. But I could also see the other end of it where these are strictly for online practice, that kind of thing. And in order for you to register an actual team into a competition such as a regional or later in the internationals or something, that you would need to have those Pokemon in-game.
Yeah, I think it would make sense, because we've always had to put together our teams in-game to use at live competitions in past years, but it would be a really big step forward if live competitions allowed the use of these rental teams. It would just allow everyone to be able to get, kind of a step towards everyone having perfect Pokemon, not having to spend tons of hours breeding. If you can just kind of share the work amongst friends and get that team together, it would save a lot of time.
Yes, very cool feature. I think it's hugely positive, and can't wait to see what kind of things that will come out of this.
So another thing, I guess, that we haven't even mentioned at all yet, but it was announced this week, is that we will be getting the demo for Sun and Moon actually pretty soon.
Yes, that's right.
Yep, the demo will be coming October 18th. And it'll be you can either download it straight from the eShop, or I think you can get it from the Nintendo website, it said, is the other method. I recommend probably just going onto the eShop and searching for it. That's probably the easiest way to figure it out. But with the demo comes a lot of different things. We'll be able to kind of get a look at certain Pokemon in the game, and then I think the biggest aspect of a demo, at least for VGC players, is the data miners. There are people who are going to be able to get into the game and kind of figure out all this different data just from looking at the demo. And so we might actually know a lot of base stats and learn sets from the new Pokemon before the game's even released.
That'll be very cool. We'll certainly have to wait, how much the demo actually, contains.
Yeah. Because it's kind of interesting. I kind of wanted to ask you, Steven, if, these data miners were able to get information on the new Pokemon, would you look at it, or would you wait till the game's released to kind of look into that information? Because while it does give you the edge, it kind of spoils things before you even get your hands on the own game.
Are you talking about base stats or movesets?
Kind of both, because that's something that the data miners could probably find just from hacking into the demos. And so after they get some time with the demos, they'll be able to release these things with the base stats and movesets. And so would you want to have that competitive edge, I guess, knowing the information as soon as possible so that you can start planning stuff for Sun and Moon? Or would you rather kind of wait until you get your hands on the game to kind of keep the spoilers from coming through?
So with the two options presented there, I'm actually going to go half and half. Base stats, I'm perfectly fine with looking at, knowing them versus not knowing them. Not knowing them isn't really that much of a spoiler. Knowing them isn't really that much of a spoiler of anything. Those are just things that are pretty static, and it wouldn't hurt to know them early. Movesets, that I kind of want to save that for playing through the actual game, and I guess so. Yeah, that would be my opinion on that, is to go half and half there.
I think I agree with you. It's kind of like no offense, but like a casual perspective. When you're playing through the game, you don't really think about base stats too much. You're just kind of like pick a Pokemon and then it just has to have some good moves. And the moves are kind of really what defines that Pokemon for when you're playing through the game. And so I can see that base stats don't spoil a whole ton for you, but a moveset kind of tells you what kind of Pokemon you're looking at.
Yeah, that's true. It's nice to be casual every once in a while. Or, every time we get a new generation, it's nice. Just to relax a little bit.
Yeah, I actually just pre-ordered the games yesterday, so I'll be picking those up Thursday at midnight or whatever, but I'm not going to play them right away. I'm going to wait till the weekend and just kind of like take my time with the game. I'm not going to rush it because this is really exciting, a new generation of games. We didn't get a game last year, so I'm really excited to be able to play a new Pokemon game again.
Aha. So I see you pre-ordered your game. I actually did it this week too. I think it was right after all this info was released is when I did it.
Oh,
to
very
pre-order.
cool.
So that's cool. And you also mentioned how you weren't going to rush through the games at the end. And number one, that's because you're probably not going to London. I don't think I am either. So that's why we get to enjoy it a bit more.
Yep.
And yeah, I probably won't be starting it right away when I get it, whatever that Friday it comes out.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to wait a bit. Other than that, do you want to move on to all the new online competitions kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, we failed to mention that. I probably should have mentioned that alongside Battle Spot, but I was just really excited to talk about the demo. Yeah, so go ahead and, kind of expand on that, Steven.
Oh, I guess I forgot. Let's go back to the demo really quick. Didn't they mention how you get an Ash Greninja from it? If you play
yes, Ash Greninja, that was part of the demo. That was in one of the Sun and Moon trailers that they released this week, I believe. Yeah, you could get an Ash Greninja, which I'm pretty positive will not be allowed in VGC. It's got a new ability called, I don't remember what the ability was, but it basically has to have a certain level of bond with the trainer or something, kind of like it was in the show, and then it evolves into Ash Greninja, and then I think it's probably more powerful, but we're not totally sure yet.
Yeah, so what the heck is that supposed to mean, though? Your bond has to be stronger. Is that, just standard happiness kind of thing, or is this something else?
I don't know. It's a really strange concept. All I know is that, my speculation is that it's going to be stronger than a regular Greninja just because... and then it's not going to be allowed in VGC 17 because the very first special format in previous years, VGC has typically been in the special format, at least for 2014 and 2016, I believe. I think 2015 was just standard double battle. But so the special format at the beginning of Sun and Moon will be, I think, just regular single battles, but they'll allow Solgaleo, Lunala, and Ash Greninja, I believe is what it said. And so it makes me think that Ash Greninja is going to be banned from being played in some of these other formats, which makes me think that it might be a bit more powerful.
That would actually be really cool. I wouldn't mind it. It'd be neat if it were in VGC. It'd be cool to see.
Yeah. I'm thinking it's not likely, but it could be. It just depends on, how does it even evolve into Ash Greninja or transform or whatever? We don't know how the bond mechanic will work, but that is something kind of funny we saw in the demo trailer.
Yeah, so I guess after that quick U-turn, we've finally brought out our new Pokemon after using all the time on the clock. We're back to talking about the competitions, and this was actually revealed much earlier than this past week or so, that people were able to host their own online competitions, their own kind of tournaments, and there will be ways for TOs to host live competitions with the proper rule set and timer functions. It was revealed that these will also just be scannable QR codes.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome feature that we've yet to talk about, even though it is older news. It's going to make life for TOs a lot easier, being able to run official tournaments, whereas 2016 was kind of a nightmare at the beginning for TOs running these tournaments because of having to use normal rules instead of flat rules, which led into a lot of problems. But this is going to make it so that we'll have a static rule set that TOs can kind of enforce. It's looking great for like premier challenges and stuff like that don't get tethered. So that's going to be really cool.
It's still kind of a nightmare running the non-tethered events now, because with some of these announcements, you're getting some of the newer players coming in already. Just trying to pick up points from the remainder of the 2016 format, and that's something they still have to deal with.
Yeah, that's a good point. Is that explaining it and just kind of making sure that nobody accidentally breaks the rules, because normal rules leads to so many different problems. I despise normal rules ever since like the beginning, but just because of how many things could be broken, like one of the biggest ones is bringing 6 Pokemon to a match. That just shouldn't be allowed, but with normal rules, we have to use them because of our restricted legendaries. But it's interesting. Also, the friendly kind of competitions, being able to host your own competitions on BattleSpot's very cool for, like side tournaments and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering how soon after the release of Sun and Moon, we're going to have the like Sun and Moon for VGC 17 with Megas side tournament, because people miss them so much.
Oh boy, I don't imagine people would, well, we could see that.
There's going to be some people who are bound to miss Mega Evolution. There are people who are going to miss using the restricted legendaries. I definitely will not be missing them for the time being, at least not anytime soon, but maybe in the future I'll miss them.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, people can call those tournaments like VGC 17 with Megas.
Yep.
That'd be a different side format to see what it would be like.
Yeah, and then maybe like the 2017 without Z crystals. Like, oh, the format would have been so much better. But we'll see how that actually goes. But the side competitions are going to be fun, I think. It'll also be like a good source of practice if you can get enough friends together to have it kind of enforce the rules for everyone, and it'll kind of run things for you. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and anyone else who's really just maybe there's some, popular person who's running a large tournament. You could get a lot of participants in that, get some practice, and it'll be fun. Now, before we close, we did this, I think, last time. So, with all this new news that came out, do you want to do a quick, just talk, what did you like the best, what did you not like so much from some of these changes?
I'll quickly jump on the announcement of no Megas being allowed in VGC 2017 as my kind of favorite announcement. That's just going to be really, really different and really cool. Huge step in the at least in a new direction that a lot of people didn't expect. No one, like, people thought Megas can't go away. Like, they're so embedded in the format now, and like Pokemon's kind of so committed to them, but they actually got rid of them, and that's just a huge, huge change.
For my thing I like best is finally having that new ladder.
Yeah.
Can practice full year round. Yeah, just no complaints there. Can't wait to start playing on there. It's going to be available right away at launch.
At lunch, did you say? I haven't eaten yet.
At launch. You haven't eaten yet?
No, I've eaten. I just haven't had lunch yet.
Okay.
But anyway, and then I guess for my least favorite news, I would say the timer, but only because we don't have enough information yet. Like, they released this tidbit that's like, I don't know, 70, 80% of the way there, but we need that last bit of information to know, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What exactly does it mean for VGC 2017?
So, just looking through all the things we just talked about, I'm going to have to just piggyback you there and go with the Your Time feature. Just, there are a lot of unknowns we don't know. That's probably the thing I would complain about most, is that we don't know enough yet to make a, real decision about how we can feel about these new changes. But do you have any last comments on any of the news?
Yeah, I think we've about covered everything pertaining to this new format announcement. So I think it's about time to wrap up, Steven.
You got it. So that'll just about do it for our show. To close here, a reminder that we are on iTunes. You guys can find us on there. You can download this program if you haven't already and are listening elsewhere, such as our YouTube. And I guess we can go into the Twitter stuff, yeah?
Yeah, if you want to follow me, I tweet the show out every time it's posted. I'm at Lexicon VGC. And Steven, where can we follow you?
At Super Morioka.
Cool. And Steven also posts the show on his Twitter every time that every time it's released. So make sure to follow us if you want to keep up with when the show is coming out right away.
Yeah, don't forget to leave us questions. I'm hoping these start getting. I'm hoping we start getting more of these when we get closer to the actual. Maybe in December when we get actual new information that we could talk about. That would be cool for people. That would be cool for us to answer. But other than that, we're really in this dead period of VGC right now in the fall, and it's really the calm before the storm. So I think that's about it. We'll see you guys next time.
All right. See you later.